Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What Do You Say Anime. On today's episode, we will be doing our second ever recommendation episode with a little twist. Instead of doing demographics or genres that we would recommend, we'll be playing off the meme of the anime starter pack and giving a few recommendations based off various themes. So, for example, the pretentious weeb starter pack, we have shows like Legends of the Galactic Heroes, Evangelion, and Ghost in the Shell. Joining me today on this episode is my lovely co-host, Miles. Miles, how's it going?
Oh, it's going really good. I just realized what I should have done for these starter packs, and I'm kicking myself. But it's going to be a good episode nonetheless.
We can always do a second episode if this goes well or something like that. Who knows?
Remember, if you want to hear us just list 4 shows that are mildly connected and make some jokes, like that video.
Oh, sick plug. Yeah, we're always we're always trying to create new content and different content, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it falls right off the wall. So we will find out how the community reacts to this, but I personally think this is a good idea. I think it's fun. People like recommendations, especially from somebody like me who has seen like a shit ton, and somebody like Miles who has taste. So I think it's a good balance. So without further ado, Miles, I think you are going to start things off with us with our your first theme of anime recommendation.
Yeah, so just to prove how much taste I have, my first category for our starter pack, we're gonna list 4 shows here, right, that we think belong into this. Is like baby's first avant-garde anime. So if you're listening to this and you're like, these anime aren't avant-garde, you pretentious sack of shit, congratulations, that's the theme.
Oh, but before you list them, since I'm a big baby, can you explain what an avant-garde anime is?
I absolutely can. So, avant-garde is generally used to mean new, experimental, different than the norm in some way. The My Anime List definition, which not all of these shows are going to fit into, and for some reason Higurashi Sotsu fits into, and none of the other parts of the series, is experimental fiction which shuns conventional storytelling at the time it was created. These stories often invoke unsettled feelings because they reject traditional ways in which we prefer to view or escape from the world. Narrative is avant-garde works is often of higher importance than content. Oh, it probably means to say in. So yeah, the narrative is maybe more important than exactly what's happening, the nuts and bolts and sort of it. The feeling and the tone is what you're looking for, according to this. But it basically just means things that break tradition, norms. They're sort of experimental or new at the time they were created. And so, for my first one, I'm going to do Tatami Galaxy.
Banger.
So, yes, this is I think if you sort of know the sort of thing, this is probably right where your brain went for this. So, why this is a starter avant-garde thing in my mind is that overall, this is a very approachable story, right? This is about someone's experience at college and trying to make the most out of that time and trying to reconcile with potential regrets they had and how to make the most of the time they have going forward. That's super relatable, right? Everyone deals with something similar to that. However, the way the story is told is relatively unique, right? You have this sort of time loop thing that's going on. It's not clear exactly what role each person plays. The role, you have a recurring cast that plays different roles in each of these stories. It's not like a normal time loop where things change and you can see a cause and effect. It's different each time in relatively unique ways. Aside from that, you have sort of the Science Saru-ish art style, right? Which is definitely different than what we normally see from anime, especially nowadays.
Yeah, it stands out for sure.
Yeah, you have a lot more flat tones. You have anatomy that's drawn differently. You have all of that. And so that's sort of what I was thinking about for this. It's still a story that's very approachable, but it's telling that common, approachable, coming-of-age story that we get in a lot of anime in sort of a different, more unique way. It's definitely not, blowing all conventions or anything, but it's also not cookie cutter by any means. What are your thoughts on this one, Pete?
No, I agree, and man, I'm trying to do my best without spoiling it. But like you said, it's more of like you do have these coming of age stories, and how do you twist and turn it to make it unique? And Atomic Galaxy to me is one that stands out, especially when you have an entire storyline around a sex doll or something like that. You know, like
Yes.
that is different, and I think the big thing that stands out for the Atomic Galaxy is the art style. You mentioned it before. Yusa, the director, is really known for a specific style of art direction and animation, and that alone to me stands out as avant-garde. And then you mix in the story itself, and I do really think it's a standout. It's a staple for this type of theme, and yeah, I think it's a great starter pick.
Yeah, so I was deciding between this and ping pong initially, but so I decided that ping pong, like, it does have the same art style, right? Because, you know, as you mentioned, this art director has like a very unique style that you can sort of just tell it's them immediately.
Yep.
But I think ping pong's story is pretty grounded, right? It's just a sports anime, and maybe it like goes a little deeper than some sports animes do, but overall it's hitting all of those same beats, and it tells the story in a pretty similar way. And so that's how I sort of came with Atomic Galaxy for that one.
I agree, because ping pong is,
yeah.
you know, like zero, I was just saying zero to hero, but like, you know, that style of working hard and trying to be the best at something is not something super unique. And I think what ping pong does more stands out is in its animation rather than its story, where Tatami Galaxy, I think, mixes elements of more than just animation to make it that avant-garde level.
Yes, and avant-garde is just such a fun word to say.
It's very fun.
The French were really onto something. So my next one is going to be Perfect Blue. And honestly, if you're sort of looking for anything like this at all, you know, Satoshi Kon is just a good place to start for almost all of his movies, to be honest. Like, Paprika is going to give you something similar, as is anything you watch. I guess maybe not Tokyo Godfathers.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I went with Perfect Blue because I feel like it hits a lot of it's graspable from the sense that it's a thriller, and it feels like a thriller, and it's paced like a thriller, and I feel like you sort of get that common vibe from it. However, it again deals with some stuff. So, like, one main thing here is that you have a very unreliable narrator, and because of that, you have like delusion and reality sort of seamlessly blending into each other at different rates throughout the story, which is really cool. You know, but it's also not the most common way to tell a story. You know, you're not normally supposed to be thinking, is what I'm seeing actually happening? But in a lot of ways, these like sort of, you know, crime mysteries and stuff do want you questioning some stuff and what you're presented, but maybe not what you see on screen. So I think this just sort of takes that concept a step further. So it's still sort of grounded in its root genre, but it does it in like a bit of an extra way that's more experimental. You also have, you know, sort of time is fluctuates in this. It's not always completely grounded. And at the end, there's still some question about exactly what happened, right? You don't completely get a closed ending. You know, in most stories, of course, have a closed ending. You know, they end, and you know what happened. And that's not the case here. You know, even like to be continued endings, you know what happened. Maybe it's an open ending, but this one you're not exactly sure what happened. And so that makes it, you know, a little bit unique, but it's still pretty grounded, all things considered. And you know, that's why I thought it would be like a good introduction to this. Pete, you love this anime.
I do.
What are your thoughts here? You think it was a good choice?
You know, when you told me that this was going to be one of the things that you wanted to talk about, I wrote down like what I was thinking you might do, and I wrote down a Satoshi Kon movie / show, because I think he really does stand out. Whether it's Perfect Blue, which to me is probably his most avant-garde show. I think you could pick something like Paprika as well. I think Millennium Actress does it in a little bit. Paranoia Agent, I believe, does it as well. I wouldn't say Tokyo Godfathers, but I think when you think of like directors, I think we've hit the two on the head that stick out to me are Satoshi Kon and Yuasa. And I think Perfect Blue is a great, just absolute fantastic choice of an avant-garde style show slash movie.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree, which is why I picked it.
That's a good point.
But I think it's good. And then it's also short, which is nice, right? Like, it's a movie. There's not a lot of commitment here if you're trying something outside of what you would normally do.
I agree. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. So my third choice here is Serial Experiments Lane. Serial Experiments Lane honestly gets pretty freaking weird at times. Like, I think out of the things that I've listed, it's definitely the weirdest, and things happen that aren't clear the most, and you sort of have to understand the theming and everything of it to put it together, what's really happening. What is nice and approachable about Serial Experiments Lane, this was made in like 2001 or so, right? Like, it was airing during 9/11 because there's that clip of the text rolling over the OP. Is that a lot of the theming and stuff is like about the internet and how that'll change humanity. And we've got almost 20 years, almost 25 years on this to learn how that affected humanity. So at the time it was dealing with this not brand new, but very, relatively new thing that was connecting people. Computers weren't in everyone's homes, like all of this stuff. And it was trying to examine how that would affect humanity. And at the time, right, that was like a new concept, and they did it in new ways, and they asked questions that people hadn't asked before. But now we've asked those questions a lot, and people have answered them in a lot of different ways. And so I find that subject matter to just sort of be more approachable. So if you understand like that theming, which is pretty easy to grasp nowadays, in my opinion, at least, you'll be able to understand Lane, I think, pretty well, but you can still, you're sort of going in with some of the answers, but there's still stuff to figure out. And that's why I think it's like a good beginner choice for something like that, because it's not dealing with something that's new to you. You don't have to learn about a concept or deal with something that's ongoing now. It's something that lots of people who watch anime have a good grasp on, which is like the internet and how that affects humanity.
So this is one of the rare shows that I haven't seen, but I think it'd be really fun to, if you understand that concept of knowing that, this show came out in 2001, and you have to try to think about the mindset of what it would be like if you were in 2001 and what they were presenting to you. I think that's like a really fun idea of like a show in like today's age, where to me that would be something that I would love to do for like Watch Club, and like, try to pick the brain of each other, of like, try to imagine you're in the shoes when, I guess in 2001 I was like 7 or something. I don't wait. I was 10. There we go.
Yeah,
I forgot what year I was born. And
you're older than me by a little bit.
And I was just like, hold on. I can do the math, but I do think like, even if it's a show that maybe doesn't hold up as well as maybe if it did in 2001, I think it'd just be fun to have that in your like repertoire, to like have that mindset of being able to think about when the show came out at that time. So big thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I think it's something similar to like Akira, right? Where it's like very ingrained in when it was released.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
And so, that I think it's a good thing to do, and it helps you, like, apart from this whole avant-gardeness, like trying to consume a show and think about when it was made. You don't have to like it, right? Like, you don't have to be like, well, this was good in 1972, so it's good. Like, you can be like, oh, this sucks now.
Yeah.
But thinking about why people liked it, then is probably a good thing to do. I think it helps, just being able to consume things, because I guess like a thing that I've been thinking lately is like, nothing is popular for no reason. Like,
for sure.
Yeah, like even if I think something is like bad, there's a reason people like it, and there's reasons people resonate with it, and wondering about that and trying to figure out what it does well is important.
Yeah, like if an anime came out now about like say like AI or something like that, and then in 20 years, like who knows what AI is going to be like? I have an idea, but like it's probably not even close to what I'm imagining. And then like looking back on 20 years from that, or 20 years in the past, and like seeing what we thought at the time, I think that'd be such a cool concept, and Lane can do that since the internet essentially controls our lives in some
Yes.
way.
Okay, and my last one, it's a pretty controversial choice for an anime.
Ooh.
Yeah, read the Yumaneko VN. Uh,
Wow, that's
so
wow.
yeah, so here's the thing: you've watched these first three, and you've decided, fuck it, I love being pretentious. It's great. You know, you're like, bring me all of this sort of stuff. I want everything that's like weird and not normal. Well, here you have like a 3 stacked meta story about writing stories. And each story is a slightly different story about writing stories. It's really fucking good. You also get to brag to people that you did it, and honestly, that's what watching anime is about. I know you know that. You watch anime so that you can talk to your anime friends about that you watched anime. In this case, it's like reading.
Who wants to do that?
So, but that gives you extra avant-garde points. You know what I mean?
That's
What a
true.
bizarre. Well, yeah, like did you know there's this new form of consuming media where they just have like words?
Couldn't be me.
And you read them. And honestly, it's very similar to watching an anime because you have words and music and there are characters on screen, and the only difference is you have to click to change the subs, honestly. There's voice acting. It's literally just an anime you have to click a mouse for. But I think it's a good one because it's like meta in the way where the story is about writing stories and the person who's writing it, and it's like a very interesting way to like examine that. There is an anime for this, but it's bad, so I didn't include it. You know, but I think that it's like a very unique way to tell multiple different stories in such a way. Like, I think things generally aren't stacked on top of each other. You either, if you have multiple stories, they're generally like in parallel with each other as opposed to like layered on top of each other like that. And so I think that is the benefit to that. Yeah.
I'm just picturing, like the meme where like the dude, it's like the galaxy brain meme where like each thing, like his brain gets bigger and bigger and smarter or whatever. It's like, I watched the anime, I read the manga, I read the light novel, I read the visual novel. It's just like, if you want to be pretentious and avant-garde, I don't know like how much more you could get to the visual novel. Like, is there anything above visual novel? Like
writing a book,
or like right, yeah, I wrote, yeah, or I visited Hirakawa.
I think it depends on what you're like trying to do, right? Because like Yumineko plays with what the truth is by how things are written and stuff. So like the fact that it's written is very important to how it's trying to say things, right? And then it also is like self-aware in sort of a way that it like knows that it's a game in some ways, but it doesn't super like it sort of glances there. It never like completely breaks that. And you know, but I think that, you know, like reading obviously I feel like gives that air of you know, but like it depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And for like what Ryukishi was trying to do, I think like written is the best way to do that. But I don't like, you know, for lots of things, I think that if you had an anime, that's just going to be the more pretentious way of like watching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Perfect Blue. Could you imagine like the subway scene where she's looking at the glass, but it's like a manga panel and then you like flip it? Like that's just not as good, right?
It doesn't hit.
Like, yeah, it wouldn't hit as much. So, this point being, whatever your favorite media is, you too can be avant-garde.
I love it. So now we get to the point where I get to critique your list, and where I thought, for the most part, It was very well. I'm a little surprised you left out Devilman Crybaby, just because of how much of a advocate you are for that, and also you could be prestigious by saying, you know, like it won Anime of the Year, it beat My
Yes.
Hero Academia, like
Yeah.
that's I swear that was going to get slipped in. Also, for me, when I think like my staple for Avant Garde is Fooly Cooly,
Okay.
just
Yeah.
like the allegory of puberty that the story tells, I thought that maybe would get mixed in there. And it's also like 6 episodes, but I think The Perfect Blue can kind of be like that short form avant-garde style of storytelling that you don't need
Yeah.
all these long running things, especially the Yumaneko visual novel. So
yeah, so I didn't include Devilman Crybaby because I didn't want people to be scared off.
that's true. That's a good point.
Like a lot of people have, myself included, but I like loved it, like a very negative reaction to the ending of that show. People did not like it.
I think it's beautiful. I think it makes perfect sense, and I dropped my score because of it.
Yeah, okay. So I like that's super fair. I need to go to therapy after it. That's why I gave it a 10.
Yeah. Only show that make me go to therapy. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. You know, so like for me, and it also, I mean, it definitely has like the approachable thing, right? It's like your standard hero's story, just sort of different. But there's also like, I mean, there's a lot of sex in it. There's necrophilia in it. There's a lot. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's like the world's most approachable thing. You know what I mean? Like, I could show, you know, I like my dad and I could watch Serial Experiments Lane. He might think it's like weird, but he wouldn't judge me for it. You know, if I showed my dad Devilman Crybaby, he'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the demon orgy scene. Yeah, that might get a little.
Yeah. There's a few things in there. You just be like, okay, pal.
This is anime, weirdo.
Yeah, for Fully Coolly, you know, I don't know why I didn't pick it. I think that I just don't resonate with it as much. Like, I did enjoy it. I think I even gave it a pretty high score, but like, it doesn't really like hit for me the way that these did. And
I get it.
That's a really good choice, though. You're right. Like, that's a lot of people's like first sort of like out there anime, and
it helps like it was on like Toonami and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean that's a very good choice for it, right? Like, it's got evocative, memorable scenes. It tells things in sort of like a unique and weird way. Like a freaking TV comes out of the dude's head.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
Yeah, that's a very good choice.
Cool. All right. Well, that's Miles's first one. Now I'm gonna pass it over back to me. So are you sick of the typical middle school, high school, student council, hand holding, blushing, that style of storytelling where it's like, where are your parents? So that's what I'm labeling my theme as, is where are your parents? These are going to be shows with an adult themed and an adult cast. The first one I have up, also I did this a little differently because when you recommend anime to like the first people, do you want to recommend them peak or do you want to recommend them like an 8 out of 10? And I'm going to start with an 8 out of 10. So my first one is called Wave, Listen to Me. It is a story where, I think a lot of people will get this. A girl gets broken up by her boyfriend and she goes out for drinks and she's very upset to the point where she blacks out and hijinks ensues. So what she finds out the next morning was that she was at a bar talking to this guy, drunk, rambling, talking about relationships. And this guy is a radio producer and he likes her story so much. He's like, we need to put you on the radio. So she starts her own like relationship style radio show based off of her breakup. And it has really fun elements because she's able to do like her show at like 3 a.m. So it can be a little bit more, I won't say like risque, but like a little bit more adult themed, a little bit more, the concepts are a little bit more adult, where if kids were listening, you're not allowed like the swear type of thing. It's like when TV shows hit 10 o'clock and the kids can, or the shows can swear on NBC or something like that. And it's an overall just a wild hijinks style show where the lead character is just this, I would say emotional wreck, but she is definitely in a vulnerable state and having this opportunity to express herself on the radio, she starts getting like a following, and yeah, it's just a show that honestly it's one of like the only ones that I know of that does something like this. The female voice actress is one of the best voice acting performances like ever for me in anime. I think it's incredible. The biggest problem with this show though is like it kind of like has an abrupt ending and it needs more content, and it's like go read the manga type of thing. But I think if you're looking for an adult cast and you just want to like laugh and have a good time with like drunk idiots, there's not many shows like this. I definitely recommend Wave Listen to Me. What do you think, Miles?
Yeah, so as a big expert on Wave Listen to Me, a show I had definitely heard of before 34 seconds ago. Yeah, I don't know. So I have some questions, but I'm going to save them for the end of your list. Okay. So I mean, this does seem like a very like what I expected from this list so far, but I do have some questions. Okay. So, but okay. I want to see what the rest of your list is like.
Okay, so the second one that I'm recommending is like peak level adult cast. It's a show that we have reviewed on this show. It's actually a show that we have it tied for our highest rated show ever, and that's Odd Taxi. So Odd Taxi, I think is just an incredible adventure of fun, mystery, hijinks. The adult cast is anthropomorphic. Oh my god, how do I say that word? They're animals.
Anthropomorphic.
There we go. English is not my strong suit. And what starts off as like a pickup in a taxi cab leads to a series of events that the night just gets more and more wild and more crazy as the days insist. It's one of like it was like an anime of the year contender when it was released in 2021. Everybody on the podcast loves it. I think this maybe even could have been like in the Avant-Garde section, maybe. But Odd Taxi to me is just I don't know if I've ever met a person who didn't like Odd Taxi. That's what I'm getting at with this adult theme. Miles, do you have any thoughts on this, or should I go to the next one?
You know, I love this because I would have not thought of this as like an adult cast show in a million years, even though that's like you're 100% correct. But they're animals, so I just wouldn't have considered it. But I really like this this choice. Right, you have people working jobs from different walks of life. You get like a wide breadth of human experiences in this, and you deal with like a lot of, I guess, adult sort of issues and stuff, and then also that like one kid who's in it. But yeah, no, I love this choice. I think it's great. Good job. That's what I got. I think this fits in, and I like your category because you can get so diverse with it, right? It's definitely something that's like missing from anime, like a continual amount of good adult cast shows, but they're also super diverse, I think, as you're showing us now.
Awesome. Okay, moving on to the next one. Do you like head tilts? Do you like Studio Shaft? Do you like Monogatari, but you hate the pedophilia? Well, I got the show for you.
So brave.
So, I mean, why are you booing me? I'm right.
I thought about doing Bakemonogatari for my avant-garde section as well.
Okay, so think of that, but with an adult cast. The show is called Arakawa Under the Bridge. It is a story about a adult salaryman who is like this multi-millionaire who gets enamored with a girl who claims to be an alien who lives underneath a bridge. She's essentially homeless. So he's so enamored with it, he decides to move also underneath the bridge. He sort of like builds himself a penthouse in like the bridge's like rafters. It's kind of cool, but the story takes place underneath a bridge where it's like a cast of characters and misfits all coming together, and they all have like their own unique like issues, but it's done in like a funny way. So like, for example, there's like this failed musician who wears a star head, and he wants to be a musician, but he's ashamed of his past because he failed as a musician, so he hides himself under like literally wearing a mask. So it has like these themes of, that's just like one theme of like failure as an adult. And there's a bunch of these different characters in it. There's like a male nun who wields like dual Berettas and shoots people. it's really wacky. So like if you like the storytelling and wackiness of Monogatari, but more of like an adult theme with like problem solving, I really recommend Arakawa Under the Bridge. I know Miles, I don't even know if you've heard of it, but what are you thinking so far of this one?
Yeah, so um I'm gonna follow up with the question.
Okay.
You do have me intrigued by this. I mean, I like head tilts,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like pedophilia. So like, that's I mean, those were the those were the two things.
That's where I gotcha.
Yeah, you for sure. You got me there. This kind of like I don't know the first, and this is contrary to your point, but the first thing it reminds me of is like Hinamatsuri, just from your
Oh yeah, a little
just
bit. Yeah.
yeah, like I mean, just based off of the keywords, right? That I pulled, homeless alien.
They are both homeless aliens. Yes.
Yeah, that's. But yeah, no, this is interesting. I have a plane flight. Maybe I'll watch this instead of shows that people keep on telling me to watch.
Woo! I think it's also Aragi's voice actor does it, so it's like very Monogatari esque. The art style is very similar. It doesn't have like the same like wordplay that they do in like the Monogatari series with like the panels, but it is a very fun and I personally think it's a unique style of storytelling with like these adult themes. Everybody sort of like having this problem, and like some like choose to be homeless, and some of them like are homeless. So like that idea, I feel like another like Hinamatsuri thing where it's just like it has cool themes. Just it's I don't want to spoil too much without saying it, but if that piques your interest, I definitely check out Arakawa Under the Bridge. There's two. And the last one that I'm going to recommend is actually a show that came out last season that I absolutely fell in love with. And I'm finding a theme because I wrote down a fifth one that with my cast, adult cast, I'm a big fan of like mystery with an adult cast. I think you can do a lot of fun when you have an adult cast, and it's called Undead Girl Murder Farce. It takes place in the world with like Lupin and Frankenstein and Dracula and like those literary themes, while all solving these different types of mysteries together. So the main dude is an Oni. The main girl is an immortal human kind of person, but like she lost her body. But since she's immortal, she can just live by only being a severed head. And it's their journey together solving a mystery that they were hired to do. And yeah, just the mix between like literary characters, I think it makes it a lot of fun. The action's great. The OP is one of the best of the year. And to me, it serves a great niche that I think is missing in like seasonal anime with mystery, where I think we get like one a year that like really stands out. And to me, this is the one that stood out to me this year. I think like previous years, like Moriarty the Patriot, and I also mentioned Odd Taxi. We usually get like one per year, and this is mine this year. So I highly, highly recommend a fun adult cast like comedy mystery. And those are my four.
Wow, I can't believe that I haven't been pushed to watch this more.
Oh, you should have watched my review where I gave it a 9.
That would have spoiled it for me.
Oh, that's maybe true.
Okay, so my question for you: one, like all these shows; two, very impressed that you didn't put any workplace comedies.
I think like
on here.
Everybody's already seen like Wodokoi, and if we're doing like recommendations, I also don't think Wodokoi is necessarily like a good one because if you're new to anime, otaku culture, I think can be a little confusing.
Yeah, it's just true. I wasn't new to anime, and it was still a little confusing for me. Two things, I guess I would ask. One, what do you think makes these approachable from like, okay, you're trying to get out of like your standard thing. And then two, how many of these shows, because I think I've only seen none of them. Is that correct?
I think no, you've seen Odd Taxi.
Yes, I've seen Avant Taxi. Yeah, okay. So I've only seen one of them. And I think Odd Taxi is like super approachable, right? Like it's a mystery like this, right? And it follows a Western sort of style and everything. So I love that. And you were talking about how Undead Girl Murder Farce has like common literary
Yep.
figures and stuff that you're like familiar with, so that's for sure approachable. But like, so what percentage of these shows do you think necessitate an adult cast?
Ooh, necessitates an adult cast.
Yeah, you
Mm.
know what I mean? Because like a lot of the like shows could, and I haven't seen a lot of these, right?
Mhm.
Like I think Odd Taxi necessitates an adult cast, like primarily because you have like he has a day job. That's how you get around. He's interacting with people with that job. He has a friend who's sort of like bumming off of him and stuff, and like they're not in school or like the fact that they have nowhere to be during periods of time matters. Um, but sometimes I would get like your first show, Wave something,
Listen to me.
Wave Listen to Me, feels like it could, in theory, take place in high school.
A little bit, because like the big thing about it is, especially the first episode, is like the aspect of drinking, like getting black. I think we've all been blackout drunk before.
Every single person.
Every single person that is of age has been blackout drunk before. But I think it has like those elements of like a breakup, expressing yourself, and then I think in this one it's the rebound aspect of a breakup, and this is more of like her coming to terms with it and then rebounding in a way that instead of finding a new relationship, it's expressing yourself through this radio show. And I think that I guess when it comes to like all these shows, the big thing for me, from what I've seen and what I've interacted with, is just people who maybe, like something like Kaguya to me is a great show. It's super funny. I like the romance, but a lot of people just don't like the fact that it's set in high school. I think like the idea of just having an adult cast in a show is the selling point, and like that's what makes it like what people are looking for. I think necessarily the genre doesn't necessarily have to be one specific thing. I think it's just looking for something that people can relate to, especially like people in like our community that's a little bit older, that they just want an adult cast, and then
I think that's fair.
it.
And do you think that like it handle, because like one criticism I would throw at like Wodokoi is that I don't think they necessarily handle their issues like adults all the time.
No, yep.
And so like for this show, so this is I asked you a bad question. So the good question would be,
that's a good question.
Well, I think that like you can differentiate. Like, sure, that show could be in high school, right? It could be about a high school girl who breaks up and then joins the radio club, and then right? Like, and that's about the same show. And high schoolers drink sometimes, but like not much in Japan. From anime's perspective, I don't see them getting drunk a lot, but I think that might be more optics.
Yeah.
But I guess like, do you think that these characters handle and act like adults?
Yeah, it does definitely have, I think they do sprinkle in, the anime where it's a little comedic, it's a little over the top in some aspects, where there's still that style of anime that's not going to be like a live action drama. It's still going to have like the silliness, I feel like, of an anime. Yeah. Where something like Arakawa Under the Bridge is, while it's dealing with, I think, real issues that people deal with, whether in the show, little spoilers, people deal with like depression and like losing your job and stuff like that. They still make it in a way where you're having fun with the show because like the characters are fun. And I think that's like what anime does. And so it, in a way, sort of like your Wodokoi thing, where do they handle it like adults? Not really, because I still think there's like that anime element to it. But I still think for the most part, you get enjoyment out of it being like 75% real to like what you're thinking if it was like real life. So yeah, it's kind of like that.
I think that's fair, right? Because like, I don't know if you've ever watched like The Office, right?
But the most overrated TV show of all time.
That's an insane thing to say.
I know it is. I stand by that. I hate that show.
Man, How I Met Your Mother exists. So Seinfeld exists. So many.
Well, Seinfeld's good. The first like 3 seasons of Seinfeld are bad, and then it gets good, and then it gets bad again.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can say that with The Office, right? At first,
I don't
The Office
know.
was
I watched one
bad.
episode of The
Then,
Office. I dropped it.
that was it of season 1. Okay. Anyways, but like yes, season 1 is bad.
If you thought my anime takes are bad, you should see my TV recommendations. Woo!
Hey, watch Scrubs.
Watch Parks and Rec.
Okay, how they're so.
Parks and Rec is better. It's so much better.
I'm not opposed to that take. I think it's wrong, but enough people I know have that.
I'm not having like an office thing. It's just so formulaic where it's like White does something stupid and Jim looks at the camera. It's like, oh, okay, and then Jim.
I'm Leslie Knope. I love Parks. I'm Ron. I love libertarianism.
Yes.
I'm Aziz Ansari. I'm hip.
Yo, treat yourself.
I did it. I did the show.
You did it, man.
I love that show, so I don't want to hate on it too much.
It's like my top 5. No, I fucking love Parks and Rec.
Anyway, so Parks and Rec is a perfect example, right? Like they're caricatures, they're funny, but they're still adults, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Except for Andy.
Parks and Rec is an anime.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, that brings me to my next recommendation for anime, Parks and Rec.
Ooh, good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Bravo.
So, as I've talked to people about shows and stuff, I found that people hate giant robots.
They do.
They do. And it ruins whole shows for them. But then I've talked to the same people, and they actually love giant robots. And they have a bunch of shows with giant robots in them, and their favorite shows of all time. And so I have tried to figure out where this disconnect comes from. So my starter pack is mecha shows for people who hate mecha shows.
I love this.
So we're gonna go in what I consider the order of least mecha to most mecha, but all of this should be approachable even if you don't like giant robots that much. Or if you've tricked yourself into thinking that you don't like giant robots. So first, 86.
You mean 43?
43. 86. I hate to break to all y'all, but 86 is a mecha. There are mechs in it. They're just not humanoid. And that's a big thing for some people. So that's why I've included it here. Pete is a known 86 hater. I am a known 86, thought it was good.
It was right.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. But I think there's a lot of stuff, and a lot of people like it for a reason. You have some pretty good character work. You have great cinematography. You have really hype moments. There's a lot of times that I felt like I was really invested in characters and everything. And then I thought about it more and I decided that I wasn't. But at the time of watching it, I really did think I was invested in these characters. And so I think you have a lot of human elements in this. The show is very much not about the mechs in almost any way. There's a few things about them, how they work. You get some diagrams. The enemy army is like sort of self-autonomous spider mechs or whatever. But I think that what you mostly have here is a character drama with like a backdrop of some mechs. So if you wanted to watch 86, but that mecha tag sort of scared you off, give it a go, is what I would say.
We're going to play Miles Bingo with this one. So I wrote down the 4 shows that I thought you were going to list. And right now we're shooting 100%. Because I also agree. Whereas I put my personal bias aside. I think 86 is a great starter pack anime for, the mecha fans or the non-mecha fans who actually like mecha, but they don't know type of thing. Yeah. 86 is a great choice.
Okay. So number 2 for me is Code Geass.
2 for 2. Let's go.
Okay. I think you might get fucked on the 4th one.
But we'll see, because my 4th one is a little different too.
Oh, okay. So Code Geass, again, I am so sorry, everyone. It's a mecha show. There are mechas, and they actually care about them a little bit. They even have some special mechas for the main characters. They have names for them, right? Like you have your nightmare units, and then like you have the Lancelot, which is the special one. So there's stuff there. However, there's a lot of stuff going on outside of the mecha, and the mecha. There aren't like a ton of mecha fights or anything in this. There are some, but there's a lot Code Geass is actually just Death Note, right? Like,
Oh, that's an interesting take. I haven't heard that one.
where it's like you have like this sort of like psychological drama with someone who has, who's like super big brained and Lelouch, who's trying to get this very lofty goal, and he's using his sort of ability to do that, and he puts his brains against other people's, but he's got a little bit of an advantage, and the advantage isn't the mech. His mech isn't even that good compared to his enemy's mechs. So while mechs are used in the army and they're like an important plot piece and everything, we're not showing off mechs here, right? Like, this isn't the whole thing here. So I think that, again, if you've heard a lot of good things about Code Geass, but that mecha tag, that makes you a little not want to watch Code Geass, I would say give it a go. There's a lot of time between mechs and this. Lots of the action doesn't include the mechs. It's not a commercial for model kits, even though I have a Lancelot model kit I put together.
It works.
So that's my thought. I think there's a lot to the show. It's pretty long, and in that, there's not a ton of mech density. What is your thought here, Pete? I mean, you agreed, right? So
I agree, because I do think that the mechs come second to like the magic in the world, while
yes.
I think the focus is on the Geass itself. And the mechs are more of the tool of solving the conflict outside of what can't be solved by the Geass. And because like I'm in the camp of, I don't mind mechs. Like, I don't actively search out mech shows. I will watch them, and for the most part, I enjoy them. And Code Geass, to me, is one that absolutely stands out. When I feel like when the mechs aren't the focus, and you kind of get them in like burst, that's when I enjoy it the most. And Code Geass, for me, does that. And I also wrote it down on my list, so I'm 2 for 2, so I absolutely love that pick.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I'm at. To me, like, I've never understood personally, like, and I get everyone has things that they don't like or whatever, and like that's super fine. I'm not telling you what to like or not. But I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah. I was gonna say, hold on.
Like settings aren't genres, and I've just never been bothered by a setting personally.
Sure.
And like tools are, what I mean? It's like. And we know people who are like, I don't like swords, but like not liking mechs has always been to me like, I don't like shows with swords in them. And it's like,
I like robot swords.
It just seems like weird to me. I think okay. If you don't tell me what your guesses were, because I think I have guesses for what your guesses were.
Okay.
If that doesn't work.
Okay.
So the third one I have, and I'm going to need your assistant with this.
Okay.
Because I have not watched this show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But this is just based off my experience with people who say they don't like mechas and then also love this show. And this show is Gurren Lagann.
Okay.
So what I do know about Gurren Lagann is that the mechs are kind of a giant deal in this. I've seen some scaling. Now, I have a theory, and you can tell me if I'm right or not on this, for why I think people who normally say they don't like mecha like Gurren Lagann. So one, Gurren Lagann, by all accounts, is a very, very, very good show, and people will forgive a lot for a good show. Two, the scaling that I have seen for the mechs on Gurren Lagann is so fucking absurd and insane that I think it stops counting. I think it's not actually about robots anymore. It's about
I feel like we can spoil this by now. the final episode, they fight God, essentially.
Yeah, so like, there we go. I didn't know that, but it makes sense from what I have been spoiled on. So like, that's my thought. Like, it stops. It's so ungrounded that any amount of suspension of disbelief that would be blown for someone just watching like a normal mecha show is so blown by what Gurren Lagann is doing that it doesn't even matter anymore, because the intention is to just keep scaling, right?
With the mech, yes. there are so many other elements involved with Gurren Lagann that I think that's what resonates with people, because the glow up of Simone from the first part to the second part and his like coming of age is one of the best in anime. I love adult Simone. It's such a refreshing storytelling of that coming of age where we see him. I think it's like 7 years from the first part to the second part. Like that really resonates with me with it. The romance is, oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. There's so many other elements in Gurren Lagann that makes it stand out, where I think it's kind of like Code Geass, where the mechs are like the vessel for everything else, where yes, the conflicts are solved by like the violent conflicts are solved through the mechs, but I don't think that's the focal point. If that makes it's hard to say because you haven't seen it, but I think the people who have seen it know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. Now, which one do you think Code Geass, or because I'm trying to put these in least mech focused to most mech focused for my recommendations? So did I place Gurren Lagann correctly after Code Geass?
I think they're interchangeable. I think they both have like other elements in the story where the mech isn't as important. There's just like the Gurren Lagann is like, you know, it's like their transport vessel is the robot. So like it's a much bigger part of the story. So maybe it'd be 2. I don't know, but it's close. It's interchangeable.
Okay, so I guess you're 2 for 3 currently, right?
I'm 2 for 3.
Yeah.
Should I say it now? I don't know.
Well, no. So I'm gonna do my fourth one because I think you'll be 2 for 2. I didn't. Gurren Lagann would have been hard to guess because I haven't seen it. You know, I haven't seen
it. But I was close. I'll tell you after why.
Okay. Because you thought I was going to say Evangelion.
I did not, actually.
Oh, okay.
There's one that's way more prominent than Ava for you.
Oh, yeah, okay. So this is where the trick one comes in.
Attack on Titan.
So Attack on Titan. Ratatouille.
Ratatouille.
So this one is going to be very mechy. I'm going to say a word that's going to scare a lot of people who don't like mecha.
Does it start with a G?
Or think that it does. It starts with a G. So I'm going to go with Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so the reason I didn't pick Witch from Mercury, which is what I think you're thinking of right now, is because the Ariel as a suit is so important to that story and how it was made.
That's true.
And like 1/3 of it is people debating what Gundams are and what mechs are and how they're different. And they go to the mech school.
I got so caught up in lesbians that I blocked all that out.
Yeah, so fair enough. I mean, me too. You know, and I love that show. But if like giant humanoid robots scare you, that show is about giant humanoid robots in almost every possible way. So, you know, that's not my pick. I think you're missing out, but also I'm not here to force things you don't like on you. This one is about giant humanoid robots, though. But IBO, I feel like, it's about this group of kids from Mars, which is like in this world sort of like downtrodden and sort of like a colony of Earth, and they're trying to get their independence, and they make some deals with like the space Yakuza, and then it's about their rise and their fall. And so the mechs are prominent on this. This is a Gundam show, I'm not going to lie to you, but there's a lot of character work, there's character dramas, there's multiple episodes in a row where no one gets in a mech. You know, and there's good personal story and everything like this. It's basically your traditional sort of like mob story, you know, like Goodfellas, but with giant robots. And no offense to IBO, I love it. Not as good as Goodfellas.
I was like, is there a sauce scene in IBO?
Yeah. You know, there is like a scene similar to like the Getting Made scene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I mean, IBO is like pretty good, but I also think that, you know, I know a lot of people who don't really even like interact with anime a ton who really enjoyed IBO because, you know, not because of the giant robots, but because of the sort of like underdog story that you get from this. One downside on this is that the story gets a little loopy at the end, like not even like mech-wise, just sort of like the way a lot of Gundam stories do, where they just don't know how to tie it up. But it's an anime thing. You were expecting a bad ending here or there. So Pete, I know you haven't seen this one.
I have not seen IBO.
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to do a Gundam one to be like a little edgy, like not actually edgy because it's like one of the most popular franchises of all time. But I'm specifically trying to like recommend mecha shows for people who don't really like Gundam. Is like that's like the theme on this, and so I wanted to throw a Gundam out there. So 2 shows. So you thought I would have Witch from Mercury on here.
I did. I wrote down G Witch.
Yeah. So yeah. Again, the reason I didn't do that is because the entire story is basically about a Gundam, like very front and center. It's like the thing.
You are correct. I guess for me, is just all the fan art that I like is just Mirin and Suletta, and I'm just so focused on them and not the actual mecha that I forgot it was a mecha.
I was talking to Emily about this, and she was like, it's a shame that the show ended up being boring. And I was like, it's like my favorite show ever, but I don't blame you because like 7 of the episodes are just a business meeting about Gundams. Mm-hmm. And then she was like, I would watch a show about Suletta and her wife, like a slice of life one. And I was like, me too. And I'd give it a 10.
Yeah, me too.
And I think a lot of people want that, right? But I do think that is like good as the characters are and stuff. Like you do have a whole episode that's just a Gundam business pitch meeting, right? Like it's, I don't know. It's like Shark Tank, but for Gundams.
Yep.
Where I think that the Gundams are, while still prominent, sort of a bit back more in IBO. Now, I'm trying to guess what the 4th one you thought I would pick.
It was really close to Gurren Lagann.
Oh, it was close to Gurren Lagann. Okay. Was it like Promare?
It was Promare.
Okay.
Because we did the move, one of the short form / movies with your first one, so I kind of did that as well, where I was sneaking like a movie, and I thought Promare was a good example of, because like they in the beginning, like they use their mech to like fight fires, like it's different.
Yes, the reason I want to put Promare on here is because I don't like Promare.
Yeah. And I have see, I saw Promare on like a 4 or like a IMAX screen where it blew me away so much by its technicality that I gave it a 9. I think if I rewatched it, I'd probably give it a 7, but
don't rewatch Promare.
I won't. It's the same reason why I've never rewatched Toradora. Like I have that special memory in my head, and that's where it's living.
Okay, so how do you think I did on this, Pete?
Yeah, no, it was good. I think you had to include like a Gundam-esque show that people can find other elements to it. Kogias and 86 definitely makes sense to me because I think the themes of that are more important than the actual mech, and I think that's what people who don't like mechs are looking for, essentially. And then, I guess Promare, and you guessed Gurren Lagann, or you said Gurren Lagann, so I love it because that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, I for a second I thought you might have thought that I had Trapped in a Dating Sim on here.
Ooh, which I always argue / forget that there are mechs in that show,
and they're a big deal.
It's a huge deal. I just always forget.
Yeah, this is my thing. Like, I think people secretly do like mecha. Like that's why I made this category. That like you don't have to like all mecha. You don't need to like mecha where like mecha are the major theme and it's like up front and everything, but like you also like anime with swords in them, and that's okay too. That's how I view it.
Yep. Good list. I'm gonna close things out with I thought this one would just be fun. So if you're involved in like Annie Twitter, or you're on anime discords or some form of forum board, shipping is a big deal. People love to ship characters, and while I don't think it's bad at all, there are a lot of people who hate it. So if you ever want to get involved into the shipping community, these are the shows for you. First up, I think it's a show that is by far the most popular in terms of the shipping category, where it's a show that has 0 romance in the show, and Miles hates it. It's Haikyuu. It's not even it's not even coded in anything, but it to me, on my experience on like Twitter and Discord, it is by far the most talked about shipping of characters ever. Like people, oh man, people are really emotional and very passionate about their ships in Haikyuu. I don't know if it's because Miles, you don't live on Twitter like I do, but yeah, this is a big one just based on your reaction.
I was expecting My Hero Academia when you were talking about it, a show with, as far as I know, basically zero romance that there's like a lot of shipping for.
Yeah, there is.
Now, when you said it, this made a lot of sense to me, except for I do think there's like technically, I don't know if I would call it romance, but like all the guys like the one girl in the show.
Yeah, but that's not like
that's not who's getting shipped together.
Yeah,
right?
Well, people do ship her with a bunch of people.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's So I don't want to say manga spoilers or anything like that, but there is a relationship in Haikyuu at the end. I'll just say that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, like, okay, if I had to, I would ship Kageyama and Okawa together.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah, what are your ships?
Yeah, that's what So Kageyama and Okawa for sure. I would ship. I think like Tanaka is probably who I would pick for the manager lady.
Okay.
Because he seems like the most persistent and like in probably like a toxic way, but like a lot of shows like paying that off. You know what I mean? I would ship. I think that's like Hinata in an early grave for sure.
Wow. Hinata in a DVD on how to play volleyball.
Yeah, like yeah, but no, I definitely get that. I think that, you know what, I bet also has a ton of shipping, Blue Lock.
Oh yeah, I bet so too. But I think that's more like, I don't know how it is in the West. I bet it's because it's like how popular it is in Japan. I bet it's huge. But I think in the West, for sports anime, for me it's heavily Haikyuu.
Oh, I bet. I 100% bet.
Okay,
it's.
You're going to sense a theme. I think My Hero's good. The theme of this is a lot of like larger cast with a lot of interactions between each other. So,
and I would guess, I'm going to make a guess here, not a lot of romance in it, because I bet that like people seek that out, like they want romance, and so they add it into places where it doesn't exist.
All 4 of my shows do not have the romance tag, so that is a good call out. I didn't even think about that. That's a good one. The next one is. It's so gay coded. I think that's what gets people into this community, and that's Skate.
Haikyuu again?
Okay. I don't think Haikyuu is gay coded. Skate the Infinity is super gay coded, like so much so where people love shipping the characters. There's so much fan art of these characters together where. I think if you're a big fan of this, I think the show itself is also okay, but I think people gravitate to the show for one specific reason, and I think it's that. So, if you haven't seen Skate and you like shipping people, recommend Skate.
Okay.
The next one's a little controversial because the story ships the characters for you, but if you like drama and want to break the mold of what the show tells you to like, then I think this is the one for you. You've seen it, Miles. I've seen it. It's Review Starlight.
Okay.
Yeah, so the story itself, each girl sort of has like a partner that they are battling most of the time, whether it's like friends or rivals. And so the show sort of tells you that these two are sort of shipped together if you're into that. But the breaking the mold of shipping the characters that the show tells you outside of that makes the fandom go crazy. And that's why I recommend, if you want some spice in your shipping, I would recommend watching Review Starlight and then shipping characters that the show does not tell you to ship.
That's crazy because like I don't think I would break a lot of those pairs.
I know. So when you do, you can imagine.
Yeah, like I guess I could break some of them. Like mostly it was just like the president and her little fangirl that I shipped. So I don't know if you're not shipping them together, fucking watch out. You understand me?
Mm-hmm.
I'll find you.
Yeah, Miles is very passionate now.
I really care about the ships and review Starlight.
You should watch the movie because it adds more elements to that. Where I think if you watch the show, you only have like a taste of the ship.
Okay.
The movie adds so much more, and this is the drama spice shipping. This is the show for you. If you want the drama, get invested in the show and get on Twitter or Tumblr or wherever these fans are.
Tumblr.
And start shipping. Last one. Here we go. This one's a little different. And I don't think it's going to be on your bingo card or anybody else's bingo card. But to me, it's a show that has a huge cast and I would say zero romance. And that's what makes the shipping fun. Like negative romance.
Romance.
Because the story does not deal with, I would say, the characters themselves don't even have a gender. That is Land of the Lustrous.
Land of the Lustrous.
Yes. Which pair of rocks do you ship together? Are you a Cinnabar Diamond guy, or are you
a Diamond Bort? Right,
you're a Diamond Bort.
Yeah, that's the ship, right?
Oh, I'm a Yellow Diamond Bort guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is where we get into the drama. This is like your personal ship, where like you keep this to yourself. You write the fan fiction about it because nobody really talks about Land of the Lustrous in terms of the anime. The manga is still like ongoing, but they make a one chapter every 6 months type of thing. But I love the idea that you have this large cast of like non-binary characters with no romance. It's not even an essential part of the story at all. But they have interactions and they have conversations where you can sort of maybe build a rapport together and ship them, each one, whatever one, like Miles said, Diamond and Bort together, or Cinnabar and Foss and stuff like that. I think it's a very fun show to ship because it's unique and niche. You gave me a look, Miles. What are you thinking?
That was okay. So one, I like all of your picks, but I think you're missing like something that you need if you're trying to get into shipping.
Okay, what's that? Tell me.
And you're missing a harem show.
Ooh, oh, you're right. Oh, how dumb, bro. I can't believe I missed the mark. You absolutely need a harem.
Yeah, so like you have all of these really good, well thought out, but I think you next leveled. This isn't our intermediate shipping pack.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold this L, bro. I'm gonna hold this L.
We need like Quince on here or fucking something. You know what? If
this is a starter pack, if I could go back in time, like 15 minutes from now, I'd pick Nisekoi.
Yeah,
that to me, that's what started like the harem shipping battles for me. When I just got introduced to anime, because that show is trash, but picking best girl in that show was a conversation that will live with me for the rest of my life.
I'm gonna here. I have a lot of ideas on, and I never knew how much I cared about this, but we're learning.
Yes.
Okay. Here are some shows that I think you should have picked.
Okay.
And this is not to say any of your choices were bad. I liked all of them.
I do think I should have had a harem, though. I agree.
Yeah. So you should have had Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Ooh.
Ooh. Right. That started the shipping wars in some way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're right.
It was at least the first prominent one. So you have who do you there's not a ton of options there, but everyone has a side, right? They have Shinji and Rei, Shinji and Asuka, Shinji in therapy, Shinji and the adult woman that he lives with. Those are the choices.
Those are the choices.
So I also think Toradora would have been a good choice here. Now, obviously, very common, so I get why you don't include that. That's just like a quintessential anime that maybe everyone's already seen. But I think that's another one where you have like in our Discord, each possible pair for Yuji is represented by at
that's
least
true
people, right? And so then you have people who ship Ryuji's friend who stops mattering in the second half of the anime.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of different options there. And then there's some people who take the chaos and pick the mom. They're just like,
Jesus.
it is. I ship his mom with me. It's something Trent would say.
Have you been read by fan fiction?
What? So I think those would be good choices. Again, I like all of yours. I think yours are. I think maybe you're just too into shipping, and you pick some like next. Well, Haikyuu is pretty basic, but then you pick some like next level sort of stuff. Food Wars, I think, would be a good choice.
Ooh,
a lot of
not
characters.
Not bad.
There. Yeah, I just feel like you could do this with anything. Actually, I'm like pretty pro shipping. Like, I'm not in any shipping communities or anything. Like, I don't ever talk about it. I just do it in my head.
Yeah.
But like, I like doing it. I think it's fun.
It is fun.
So.
Okay, so I went 3 for 4. I'll take. We take those dubs. We take those dubs. Okay, well, I think that concludes it. I actually had a lot of fun with this episode. Kind of a new and unique, I should say unique, but a new thing for us that we're trying out. Let us know if you liked it, if you disagree with our takes, if you agree with our takes, if you want to see something along these lines again, let us know. But yeah, I think we're good. You got any final words or thoughts before we head out?
No. Just I hope you enjoyed the episode. I had a lot of fun just talking anime.
Yeah, me too. So if you like us, you should support us. Best way to do so, like, comment, subscribe, leave a review on whatever platform you're watching or listening to us on. Next week, we will be watching the Emiya family for Fate for Watch Club. Otherwise, in 2 weeks, I think we're doing maybe world building or something along those lines for an episode. So,
oh, cool.
That's pending, but I'm liking that idea. So we'll find you'll find out in 2 weeks what we did. So I want to say thank you, Miles, for joining me, and thanks to everyone out there who's listening. And we will see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.